you want to throw a hard punch, you throw from your fist, okay? When you throw from your fist, the weight of your fist or the action of that fist being thrown pulls the rest of your body forward, okay? Which puts you beyond your knee, which puts you off balance. And whether it's wrestling or boxing or kickboxing, whatever it happens to be, once I'm beyond that knee, A, I'm going to have trouble getting back to be able to get quick movement. B, I'm going to be completely off balance so that that person can take great advantage over this, okay? The effect of the water is that I can start to create a couple things here. When I take these kids in right now, and we will get some video backgrounds on the kids, some testimonials. So one of the things, if I'm starting here with this sort of position, okay, where I have the flat side up, this is really great for anything where I'm using any kind of rotational movement, okay, where I'm using arcs. Okay. So anything where I'm working on their uppercuts, everything goes in here. Now, I'm always looking at the alignment. When I'm looking and I'm explaining to the kids and I want to talk about positioning, I take them to a point in the pool. So essentially what I say is you're looking at where your chest line is in the water, that will come up here. And what we want to do is we want to sink down so that your shoulder is now in the water. I want to put my chin just in above the water. Now if I'm working the hooks, let's look at the opposite side. So if I'm looking at linear punches, okay? When I have this, and it just so turns out, which is a fantastic thing, that when I'm throwing a punch, the only bone that really is in alignment with my forearm is that middle knuckle. That's why we're always trying to punch with the middle knuckle. And essentially, the other strength in a bone structure is your index finger. So when they're telling you to throw a punch, they want you to land between your middle finger, middle knuckle, and your index finger. Anytime that you get outside here, these bones are very susceptible, they're very weak, and that's how you get a lot of those boxer fractures. Okay, they'll break down really quick. So what they have you do in punching is rotate your hand. You can see it on all the martial arts. So all the ranges type of thing. Okay? When I rotate the hand, the knuckles come down and I distribute the force between these first two. All right? So when I'm using this, when I'm going into the linear positions here, when I start from here, and it's nice because what I'm looking at is another thing that people do is they punch here. Okay? And this is your distance. And the distance matters a lot when I'm punching. So what I'm trying to do is get them to see that alignment. The distance from here, the difference between here and here is 4 to 6 inches on that punch. And it doesn't mean I have to lean, okay? But I'm getting there when I be further away from it. Right? So when I start them off in the first training portion that they do, as they start off and they bring their shoulders into alignment, they start from the punch and they're rotating. And it just so happens that when I rotate correctly, if I let that go right there, the fin turns and I create the fin in a shark fin sort of position. Okay? So I'm right in here. I'm working on the pivot of my body, so now my hip is in alignment, my shoulder's in alignment, my chin's tucked in, so I'm ready to protect proper positioning. So if I get hit here, hit to this side, or I get hit from this side, I'm maximally protected while I'm throwing a punch, which is the most dangerous point is when you're attacked. Okay? When I'm going from here, same thing. When I rotate over, if I get the correct position, okay, this comes flat into the body, and I'm right in. I've got the head, I've got my chin down into the water, so now I'm seeing that line of attack right here. I'm just pulling through. So if I'm just looking at this, just simple positioning, okay, I'm getting my alignment, I'm ready to stretch. I'm now, while being in the water, they're starting to see, they can feel the flow, because if I start to leave, the water gives that pull. It'll take me up, okay? So this is just one example. So when I'm working now, they're just working on coming back down and through, bringing it through, and staying in balance, okay? And at the same time, one of the problems that happened with the whole tie bow stuff is that they were throwing each other, okay? But they were keeping the foot still. All right? So when the foot is still here, and I throw this out, you know, CJ will tell you, I'm causing a misalignment on the knee joint. Okay, so there's impact going into my knee. So one of the things is about this circular motion. So as I'm throwing this jab and it's coming out, this is a short jab. If I want to get the full length of the jab, and the power behind the jab, see how my hip, my shoulder have to turn. So that means you'll gain this rotation off the toe and heel off the ground. Same thing when I'm throwing that back foot. In order to keep that in line, get my maximum reach, is I'm pivoting in the knee. This hip is now going into alignment. The other thing that's really great is this stuff here, okay, is the lower fins. When you're going and you're trying to move in the water, I'm doing my touches and everything, doing my hooks. We have techniques. There's 3 basic ones I start them off with. There's the faded forward. Fade is where you're moving back and twisting, bringing the shoulder in, and then throwing back out with a punch. The next ones are where I have the most difficulty explaining to people. One is which way call, and I keep it just really simple. You know, you can call it all in Japanese, Chinese names. But literally, we have a thing where the punch comes down, you use your forearm, and you bump off to the right. Okay, so the first one's called bump. And what essentially is you're doing is you're bumping with the forearm, you're moving, and you're turning. What happens with these guys is their feet go everywhere, okay? And they go wide or whatever, and they don't get the correct feel of staying in balance, because as I'm going, my head goes with it and everything like that. But in the water, I can show them the feel, because when I do it incorrectly and I'm stepping up, the fins want to give resistance, okay? When I do this correctly, the bump should be, I'm throwing the jab across, I bring this back in, and then I bump. I'm moving off the bump. And what I want to do is pivot the hips first, not step with the foot first. So when I pivot the hips first, and I move everything as one unit, there's virtually no resistance. I don't feel it, okay? And when they do that, it allows them to track, and they work their way back. The swing step, we feel even more, because on the swing step, we're essentially swinging back and stepping in. So if I have a punch that's coming down this line, I'm just swinging off the line and then stepping back in to deliver my power, okay? But when you're actually doing it and we want to get power and stuff, we call it kangarooing, where both feet move together. So I'm here, and if they try to move both feet, that's resistance. That's a lot of resistance right there. But then I can explain to them, and it's so hard to explain to people when you're not in the water, is that when I'm doing this type of stuff, when I pivot my hip and I lead with the hip movement first, then the feet move easily. You see what I'm saying? And they can do that in the water because you have that buoyancy. So I can feel that I can move my hips. Then I could pop, and they actually feel the difference. Then as I translate that back into real time and just on land, they've made that correction. And not only have they done that, but they still get that idea. At the same time, one of the big problems I have is when people are punching, when they start out punching, either they come from karate classes and start from the hip, which you don't want to be throwing a punch from there, but they'll tend to get way out here or way down into here, okay? By seeing and correcting the water line and creating that water line and making them focus along this water line on everything that they happen to be doing, whether it's hooks, uppercuts. Again, with the uppercut, for instance, I throw the uppercut and stop with the water line. There's no reason for me to go back here, go forward, throw it all the way through. It's just wasted energy, okay? So they start to see all these things where everything that they're doing is along that water line, the chin's down, which gives that, because a lot of people lift their head and do this, right? So if I keep that chin in the water, and I keep that vision along that water line, as they're doing this, they're actually, it's allowing me to teach people at a 100 times faster rate than if I don't have this. Now when I get out of the water, I say, hey guys, think of yourself, drop down into that water line, stay along the water line, and throw your punches. Now everything stays along that water line, it's not dropping down. And even when I want to do tilts, I just have to visualize tilting that water line. So now they're just tilting the angle, and everything stays along that water line. You know, forward and the backwards tilt. So if I'm on the forward tilt, I can still see and vision sort of that water line. And it's changed so much for these kids. You know? And then same thing, whatever I do with my boxing stuff, if I'm doing the swing stuff, is I can translate, okay, to all of your MMA. We can break it down individual group things as boxing. Okay, if I'm throwing the swing step, over here, I pivot, jump off, and I step in. There's the version of the cross. okay? If it happens to be Muay Thai, I'm doing the same type of thing. I pivot, boom, the hips move, same thing. I'm always leading from the hip. If I lead from the hip, I've got that power base coming from it. Okay, so as I'm doing that, same movement comes in for your kick, so there's no separation. If I happen to be a grappler and somebody's grabbing onto me here, it's the same thing. When I want to go around him and he's grabbing onto me into a clinch type thing, it's the same thing. If I start to pull him, he's going to resist. Okay, this is a good example. If I start to yank this person, he's going to anchor down. But if at first I turn the hip and I pop, I beat him to that position. Okay, and now it's much easier for me to take that person, or if I'm doing a swing step, I'm pivoting the hips, and now I've got that 45-degree angle that I can come off the flat position. So essentially, when I'm working and I'm looking to take somebody, strength is only useful when you're in balance. Okay, power comes when you have the torque involved in it. Okay, but for me as a fighter, what I should be always looking for is to come in on their off angles. Okay, when I'm in a strong position like this, I'm creating this sort of base that's a triangular, which is, gives me a nice strong base. However, if I was, so he's fighting me from here, okay? I'm in a very strong position to fight, in a position I can anchor myself against this position. If he's simply able to pull himself into this line right here and push this way, and push towards where my heels make a triangle, okay? And actually it's where my heels would point to a triangle according to my height, okay? I just go off, I'm completely in what we call flat space. So that's the goal of taking somebody off balance, finding the flat space either from in front of them when I'm creating the triangle, okay? Or lifting that flat space backwards, I can take a leg, take it back, and take it down this way. So these are just some of the things I wanted you guys to see, whereas, it's different than just these type of things, When I'm doing a lot of the torque things, I'll still do them, even though we're using the same type of stuff, but, we're just working on them feeling the musculature, because as I extend the arms out here, they really feel where in the body the muscles are being worked. And that's what I'm trying to come across with you guys, is I want to be more sport specific. There is everything, and I think we have everyone who can do this type of stuff and these type of things, and we can design, we can do everything from correct mechanics of different kinds of kicks and bring these things in, and we have the buoyancy which allows us to do that. And CJ, I'll tell you, there's so many more things that we can do.